as a Joe Burrow fan, as somebody who appreciates what he can do on the field and what he has done for this team, Joe Burrow has taken that next step. It is Patrick Mahomes at number 1. It is going to be Joe Burrow now at number 2 or 1B. Josh Allen just can't win when it matters the most. I know that he's been in the league a couple years longer than Joe. I know that statistically he is better. But when it comes to when it matters more, when it counts the most, Joe doesn't crumble. Joe doesn't fold. He actually welcomes adversity. He likes the challenge. I'm not saying that Josh doesn't, but it just looks like Josh can't do it. Josh has had a multitude of opportunities to get to at least the AFC Championship or a Super Bowl for that matter, and he hasn't been able to get past a certain point. It's like he's capped off. Joe has gotten better every single season. I mean, his first year, he tore his ACL. He comes back, leads the Bengals to a Super Bowl, and he doesn't just stop. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't like a, well, you know what? They made it. They lost in the wild card. They lost in the division. No, they're going back to the AFC Championship. And who are they playing? Oh, the guys that they beat 3 times in a row. The only person that has Patrick Mahomes' number, the only person that seems to go toe-to-toe with him in actual true rivalry settings. Yes, the Chiefs and the Bills had an incredible 13 seconds left game last year in the divisional round, and they went shot for shot. It was Allen versus Mahomes. The offenses, it was amazing, right? Didn't matter because it was a divisional round. It wasn't the AFC Championship, and Patrick Mahomes ends up facing Joe Burrow instead of Josh Allen. It's the seeding. It happens. You can't control that. I just think when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, Joe Burrow is that guy. And I would even say that as of late, he's better than Pat. He's beaten Pat 3 times. 1 postseason, 2 regular season. It matters, it counts, and he plays very well against the Chiefs. I'm just saying, if he beats Patrick Mahomes again, I forgot what announcer was talking, what caster was talking. I think it was maybe even Tony Romo. If they beat the Chiefs, you can no longer say the Chiefs are the number 1 team in the AFC. They may get the home field advantage. They may have the 1 seed. Joseph fucking Burrow will have gone to Arrowhead 2 times in a row with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. Again, if they win, and he will have beaten Patrick Mahomes on his home field. You can no longer say in the tier levels in the AFC that it is Chiefs Bengals or Chiefs Bills. It is now going to be Cincinnati at the top, regardless of seeding. You cannot argue against it. The statistic that matters the most are W's. If you're beating Pat, what more do you want? You have to win a Super Bowl now so you can officially tie him to say, hey, I've been in the league less, got the same amount of Super Bowl appearances as you. Hopefully, if they were to go, they would win. So you would say, well, I have a ring too. Am I better than Pat? Like, all I need is an MVP now. Technically, if he were to win Super Bowl MVP, all I'm saying is the narrative is there. The door is starting to open more and more and more as the years progress. And Joe Burrow is elevating himself into being a top 3, and it ain't 3, quarterback in the NFL.
Kev, I totally understand where you're coming from. And to be quite honest with you, I think this game kind of sealed it for me when it comes to the Bengals clearly being one of the best teams in the AFC. And as far as I see it, like, I know we picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl this year, and that was our pick. But based off of this result, and the resounding result, mind you, that we saw from this game, I can no longer say that the Bills are like that number 2 team in the AFC. It is clearly the Bengals. I still give the edge to the Chiefs just because they've established a run that's just been a little bit longer than the Bengals,
Yeah.
and they actually have the hardware to prove it. So until the Bengals reach that point, I can't put them above the Chiefs yet until they win a Super Bowl. If they eclipse that, then I think we have a much more well-defined argument. But they're clearly number 2 in the AFC. I can no longer put the Bills at number 2. And when you look at the recent pass that the Bengals and the Bills have taken, the Bengals have just shown more dominance. They made it to a Super Bowl. They, despite what I may think of the Bills having a more well-rounded team, in my opinion, I can't say that anymore. When the Bengals have been in situations with, major implications on the line, they have stepped up time and time again And the only time that they didn't, they fell a little bit short was in last year's Super Bowl. Albeit it was a competitive game, they just fell a little bit short. But as far as I see it, when it comes to Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow has definitely supplanted Josh Allen as the second best quarterback in the AFC. And Kev, I mean, I don't want to drag this out too much longer. You know, depending on what happens in this AFC Championship game between Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, if Joe goes out there and he plays like he did against the Bills this past weekend and continues to do that against the Chiefs, then I think we have a real possibility of, you know, making an argument that maybe Joe is slightly ahead of Patrick. The only thing that I have to kind of add as a caveat with this upcoming game between Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, with the Bengals and the Chiefs going at it this upcoming Sunday, is that Pat is hurt. You know, obviously he has that high ankle sprain, and I think that's definitely going to have a major impact with that game as we get closer to it. But I mean, even putting that game to the side, if you just look at recent history, it does favor Joe. The Bengals went on the road last year into Arrowhead and beat Patrick Mahomes and KC to advance to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs kind of choked in that second half of the AFC Championship game last year. And the Chiefs had a chance to get revenge this past regular season. And granted, they had to go on the road to Cincinnati to do it, but they fell short. Joe Burrow made the plays that needed to be made, especially in the fourth quarter, to give the Bengals the win and to essentially keep themselves one step ahead of the Chiefs. So in the head-to-head matchup, I do believe that Joe Burrow is better than Patrick Mahomes because honestly, history just kind of shows that. But the totality of what both Joe and Patrick have done, Patrick has the edge. That's just, there's no other way to say it. Patrick has the hardware. He has MVPs. He's been the league leader in passing yards. And honestly, he's revolutionizing the quarterback position unlike really anybody we've seen before him. I mean, the dude's a magician back there. But as far as I see when it comes to head-to-head matchup, Joe is better than Patrick. And I think he's got another chance to extend that narrative even more so if the Bengals were to win next week in Arrowhead and advance to another Super Bowl in back-to-back years. That would be quite impressive. And we'll see what happens in that AFC Championship game. Hopefully, Pat can go, and hopefully he plays pretty well despite that high ankle sprain. But all in all, I think this is just going to be a fun quarterback matchup that we're going to see for the foreseeable future. Hopefully we see this really blossom into something that will last 10 to 15 years, kind of similar to what we saw with Brady and Manning. So all in all, these are two great quarterbacks, but Joe's definitely catching ground on Pat. There's no other way to say it.